All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Anthony Monta, the Associate Director of the Nanovic Institute for European Studies here on campus. We run the film series every semester. The theme of this semester's film series is Best of Contemporary European Film, which allows us to cull, recent, talked about films in Europe for your pleasure. The film tonight has an introduction by Professor Sabrina Ferri. She is an expert in disasters and catastrophes in visual culture, among many other things. Giambattista Vico, Casanova. So there are other things as well. She's hiding her face in her hands because she's being teased by her colleagues that she's an expert in disasters. But tonight I want to emphasize the word disaster. And you're a brave group to be watching this film. When it was screened in Cannes, it was deemed by the Cannes audience to be challenging. So you are in for not only a cinematic experience here, but a good visceral experience as well. Dr. Ferri's area of specialization is the Italian 18th century. And that might seem a strange choice, but given her research interests, and her emphasis in her research on ruination and the significance of material and metaphorical ruination in all sorts of domains in late 18th century culture, I thought she would be a really interesting choice to talk about this film. So without any more hemming and hawing, I'll introduce Professor Sabrina Ferri.
Thank you, Anthony. Good evening, everybody. You are indeed a brave group. Melancholia, the latest film by Danish filmmaker Lars von Trier, premiered last year at the Cannes Film Festival. Lars von Trier is a controversial filmmaker, probably one of the most original and provocative of his generation. In the 90s, he was one of the founders of the Dogma 95 movement, an art collective that attacked mainstream film productions and vowed, under the oath of 10 Commandments, to strip films bare of their technicalities and to concentrate on raw stories and characters. Among his movies are Breaking the Waves, a heart-wrenching love story, Dancer in the Dark, which was awarded the Palme d'Or at Cannes in 2000, and Dogville, a Brechtian tale of social criticism with Nicole Kidman. Von Trier once said that his movies should feel like stones in your shoe. And if you have ever seen any of his films, you'll have experienced that sense of discomfort and vague malaise that can easily give way to outright annoyance. Lars von Trier is not an easy filmmaker. His films show an uncompromising vision of life that exposes human weaknesses and flaws to the bone. He puts forward a crude representation of human dynamics, a stark depiction of suffering and hate, which seem to be nourished by a profound misanthropy. In their tragic and violent simplicity, though, the stories that von Trier tells possess a ferocious beauty that is linked to their rich and powerful symbolism. Von Trier's stories are crude, allegorical parables. Dogville, for example, in which a woman on the run is defiled and humiliated by those who had welcomed and sheltered her, could be read as an allegory of trampled innocence, a reflection on the all-too-human mechanism of scapegoating. As for Melancholia, it is a movie about the end of the world and about a state of mind that is the end of the world. A newly discovered planet, fittingly named Melancholia, is heading towards Earth, apparently on a collision course. A woman who bears the same name as one of de Sade's heroines, Justine, sinks deeper and deeper into a devastating depression. Her sister, Claire, the clear one, who is initially stable and emotionally sound, slowly loses her balance in the face of impending doom. As the end draws nearer, the characters in the movie stare at the sky, first in awe, then with growing anxiety, and finally in terror. Only one person, who has already lost all hope, looks at the sky with calm prescience, Justine. Melancholia is a disaster movie, if you will. Not in the sense of a mainstream action film, but in an almost philologically correct sense, where a disaster means to confront an adverse star. Justine's adverse star is her own depression. Melancholia is also a highly pictorial film. The camera is handheld, for the most part, but the scenes are highly stylized, carefully composed like paintings, often painfully beautiful, even if the filmmaker, in a bout of regret, confessed that the film is sometimes slightly on the edge of plastic. If you have seen Dogville, you will recall the bare stage in which buildings and streets have been replaced by lines of chalk on the ground. And you'll understand the difference in style that made some of the director's earlier admirers cringe. A visually lavish sequence from the beginning of Melancholia, for example, shows Justine floating lifeless on the water, surrounded by water lilies in her bridal gown, a scene reminiscent of Ophelia, the pre-Raphaelite painting by John Millet. The central imagery itself of the film comes from a 16th century engraving by Albert Dürer, which depicts a brooding woman staring gloomily in front of herself, surrounded by scattered, unused objects. In the background, a star, a luminous planet, shines bright against the black sky, while a winged monster holds a banner that announces the subject of the engraving, melancholy. The woman in Dürer's engraving has the same unforgiving eyes as Justine, the same appearance of dejection. The planet in the background is Melancholia. The opening sequence of the film, you'll see, is a visual masterpiece, and it is as final as a beginning can be. In a stunning filmic sequence, a series of tableaux vivants are filmed in slow motion and are set against the haunting music of Wagner's Tristan and Isolde. Each vignette, which is impressively composed, cites a scene from the movie, anticipating the ending. But the prelude also pays homage to at least 4 different directors: Ingmar Bergman, Stanley Kubrick, Alain Resnais and the garden scene from his last year at Marienbad, and Andrei Tarkovsky, who in Solaris devotes a long sequence to the same painting by Peter Bruegel, Hunters in the Snow, which is a visual constant in the movie. This is also a romantic film. Romantic in the sense of the German Sturm und Drang, a grandiose and stylized movie with a texture of visual citations that are rich in symbolism, and a series of tense exchanges and confrontations that are filled with pathos. The acting is hypnotic. Kirsten Dunst, who won the Best Actress award at Cannes for her interpretation of Justine, is superb. Melancholia, according to Lars von Trier, is his most optimistic work. He might have been ironic, but I would be tempted to agree with him. Melancholy, as an Italian poet once wrote, is truth unveiled. There is something soothing and comforting in knowing the truth, even when the truth has the finality of an apocalypse. There is a strength and power and inner calm that Justine shows in the face of disaster, in her capacity to see things for what they are, a strength that she derives from her bleak despair, even when her detachment borders on nihilism. Von Trier, who himself suffered from depression, explained that his condition, as terrible as it could be, set him free, releasing him from anxiety. But Melancholia is also a film about family dynamics, about relationships between parents and children, husband and wife, and between siblings. There are ties, family ties and love ties that are frustrating and painful, that offer no comfort or refuge when they would be most needed. But these ties, in the end, when nothing else remains, can be stronger than hate and death. And this, if you will, is the optimistic note that resounds at the end of the film. Thank you. Thank you.